Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is a triumphant return for the franchise. FromSoftware have outdone themselves by making not only a gorgeous-looking mecha action game, but also by providing an incredibly challenging and customization-rich work of art that'll keep you busy for hours upon hours. Now, the Armored Core franchise started out way back in 1997 on the PlayStation 1. The game was built upon the idea of a central core cockpit to which limbs and weapons could be attached, hence the name Armored Core. The series has been around for ages, with multiple mainline entries and numerous spin-offs, but the last title in the franchise was released 10 years ago. Finally, in 2023, we have Armored Core 6 gracing us with its presence. With a far more recognizable and formidable FromSoftware heading up development, there's been a lot of anticipation given the studio's previous successes and the long time since that last entry. If you're a newcomer to Armored Core, you might be asking yourself, is Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon anything like Sekiro or Elden Ring? The answer to that is both a yes and a no. It doesn't fall directly into the Soul genre. There isn't a massive open world to explore, but the sheer sense of scale is hard to downplay as each area is still quite big. It is, however, a far more straightforward game, with successive missions and storytelling that's very different. Talking of story, Armored Core 6 involves mercenary groups vying for control of Rubicon 3, a planet that was engulfed by flames after the mysterious resource known as coral was discovered and exploited by mankind. Players take on the role of 621, a nameless mercenary dispatched to the surface of Rubicon by a handler named Walter. You assume the call sign of Raven from a recently downed mech, and begin taking jobs for a range of different factions. Most of Armored Core 6's story is told to you via in-game chatter, familiar enough if you've played any of the Ace Combat games, and you're often facing off against hordes of enemies while trying to listen to conversations. Just like the storytelling, the gameplay retains several classic designs, albeit massively expanded and refined, so you'll still be building up a custom mech, outfitting it with 4 weapons, 1 for each arm and 1 for each shoulder, and then going into battle. Those weapons are assigned to the controller's shoulder buttons, and if you're playing with mouse and keyboard, you can bind them to any keys. Arguably, playing with the mouse and keyboard felt a lot more precise than a controller, but I had success with both methods. Now, despite all the flashy firefights you may have seen in trailers, the key mechanic you need to learn in Armored Core 6 is how to ration ammo. You can, and will run out, so it's advisable to have a melee weapon as a backup if things go awry, and things definitely will go awry in this game. Armored Core 6 doesn't hold anything back, and while weaker enemies are typically easy to tear through, the boss battles in this game are something else. They require careful observation and strategy to defeat, as well as some pure unadulterated skill in piloting your mech. As an example, there's a specific enemy boss a fair amount into the game that has 2 phases and a powerful shield. Players will likely need to stop and rebuild their entire mech and heavily customize it in order to take on this enemy, as rushing it willy-nilly will just lead to your untimely demise. Presumably drawing on their soul's heritage, each boss battle in Armored Core 6 is a work of art. Each boss has their own particular attack pattern, and you'll need to learn how to identify and get through each phase with minimal damage. Much like in Sekiro and Elden Ring, you'll need to dodge as much as possible, and quickly retaliate whenever small gaps open. There's a layer of skill involved here, since if you make a mistake, you'll often be brutally punished for it. You have to skillfully dodge through enemy fire, retaliate, repair yourself when you find a gap, and draw on every skill you have to survive. Now, the level of satisfaction you feel upon defeating a tough foe is amazing, and that's quite prevalent in Armored Core 6. However, if tough or challenging games aren't your cup of tea, chances are you'll get easily frustrated by these boss-based roadblocks. Now, it's not all old school, and one new element Armored Core purists might find perplexing is the stagger mechanic, and to be honest, this could often be reminiscent of more modern action-focused Final Fantasy games. Slowly hammering away at an enemy until you knock them into a stagger state is the optimal way to achieve victory, since you can then easily dish out tons of damage in a short time period. Thankfully, these mech brawls are easier to pull off thanks to the inclusion of a lock-on system, which mitigates the somewhat unwieldy camera during intense boss battles or close-quarters combat. It's helpful keeping things under control, but it takes some getting used to in the heat of battle, especially when the enemies you're facing off against are incredibly large. Another big step up is the mech customization options, which are ridiculously good. You can change out weapon parts and mix and match the frame parts for additional stat boosts, all of which make a big difference in combat. An example of this is changing out your bipedal legs for a more spider tank look. This drastically affects your movement speed, and in a game where dodging is essential to survival, mobility is a key factor to consider, even if it may hamper your overall damage output. In addition to swapping out weapon and frame parts for gameplay purposes, players can also extensively customize the look of their mech with decals and paint jobs. Now, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon is a gorgeous game with vistas that are often breathtaking. From the mech design to the sprawling environments, this game is full to the brim with detail. Both your own attacks and enemy attack animations look fantastic, while the endless explosions and other visual effects are spectacular throughout. The audio is excellent too, with constant communications chatter, with quality voice acting, well suited to its military action theme. This help drives the plot forward since the characters you listen to during missions have a lot to say, and they contribute to the world building. Sound effects in general are excellent, and the soundtrack is filled with music that conveys a sense of desperation and struggle, along with some adrenaline-pumping boss battle themes. Now that said, the finer details of the story in Armored Core 6 are all over the place, and not as focused as they could be. Just like Bandai Namco's Ace Combat, you'll often have to pay attention to multiple things going on at once, and it's easy to miss some story details while panicking about incoming fire. At least the few cutscenes are great, with incredible visual style and directing. Now, although it's been a decade since the last mainline Armored Core title, fans of the franchise won't be disappointed with Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon, and we're pretty sure it'll satisfy many newcomers too. Make no mistake, FromSoftware have crafted a masterpiece of an action mech-based combat game, with great boss fights and a ton of customization options. Purists might find some of the new features a bit perplexing, but given how satisfying the game is in general, even they should still find themselves enjoying it. Now, it's by no means a perfect game, especially when you consider the unwieldy camera and sudden difficulty spikes, but the toughest boss fights still reward planning, skill, and dedication. If you're easily frustrated by challenging games though, you might want to give this one a skip. But for fans of combat-heavy, action-focused games that will challenge you in your abilities, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon comes highly recommended. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow.